Kia ora. Cool. Dave or Mandy, who's going to head off? Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, again for the opportunity to provide you a report that's been authored by the team within Natural Environment Strategy Unit. The main author, Sam Anwar, Principal Analyst, is not here today, but I do have Mandy Ping, who's an analyst within the Natural Environment Strategy Unit with me as well. So she'll go through our presentation shortly, and I'd just like to thank the staff also involved in supporting this to this stage. And I guess we just wanted to highlight that well, just first an observation that there was a recognition that we value the natural environment, and I think that's been an often said observation across all our submissions and activities across the community. So I think it's important just to acknowledge that. The point of the report today is to obviously seek approval of a scope for an updated Indigenous biodiversity strategy for the Auckland region, and that's in line with the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity. We're looking to also get agreement to the higher level process for developing the strategy, and that includes a draft discussion document which we've attached as attachment A, which we just would like your endorsement of, and that will help us with targeted engagement as we look to engage with mana whenua, local boards and relevant council advisory panels and regional stakeholders from next month. So I'll hand it across to Mandy to just go through about 5 slides or so.
So thank you, and Sandra just acknowledging that there's no clicker. I'll start by taking us through a little bit of context. Our Indigenous biodiversity is unique in this world. In Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, we have distinctive and diverse plants and animals, many of which are found nowhere else in the world. Indigenous species and ecosystems are significant to Māori, as Te Taiao is inseparable from Māori identity, well-being and authority. Mana whenua have whakapapa-based relationships with wai, whenua and moana that are holistic and enduring. And Te Tiriti o Waitangi is the foundation of the relationship between Council and Māori. The statutory and policy landscape is also complex and changing. Some examples include the reform of the resource management system, new national policy direction, Te Mana o Te Taiao, our Aotearoa New Zealand biodiversity strategy, being published in 2020. And more recently, there was the Auckland City Deal, which references the Auckland Indigenous Biodiversity Strategy as a shared commitment between central government and Auckland Council. The Council has a central but varied role when it comes to influencing Indigenous biodiversity outcomes. For example, we regulate land use through rules, and we fund community and mana whenua projects. Auckland Council does have an existing Indigenous biodiversity strategy, and this was published in 2012. Next slide, please. And that leads me to why staff believe we need to act now. Because the current strategy is from 2012, it is slightly dated. It's also internally focused, and it can be better aligned with the Council's strategies and plans that have since been developed, for example, the Auckland Water Strategy. Overall, our Indigenous species and ecosystems remain in a poor state. This was found in the Council's latest State of the Environment report. 445 species in the region are classified as being threatened or at risk of extinction. The National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity requires regional councils to update their strategies by 2033. Tangata whenua must be involved in this process too. Our statutory frameworks are also changing, and responding proactively to these changes enables the Council to inform future settings. Specifically, there is an opportunity for a refreshed strategy to inform the new Regional Spatial Plan, the Natural Environment Plan, and Land Use Plan under the anticipated Natural Environment Act and Planning Act. Next slide, please. In terms of options, the options to prepare an Indigenous biodiversity strategy are limited, and they relate primarily to timing. Option A is to retain the existing 2012 strategy. Staff consider this option is not feasible or viable because of the statutory requirement in the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity. Option B is to progress the development of the new strategic direction now, and this option would meet current statutory requirements under the MPS, and it would respond to the biodiversity crisis as well as Te Mana o Te Taiao. It would enable early, meaningful engagement with mana whenua and communities, building community buy-in. It would provide clearer direction for council investment, including for the long-term plan and regional pest management plan, and improve alignment with future plans. It strengthens our position as New Zealand's largest local authority and allows council to show leadership alongside other regions already progressing or completing their strategies. Starting work now also prepares for our commitment under the Auckland City deal. Option C would be to start developing strategic direction later, after national direction has been confirmed, and this would mean that future plans would be developed in the absence of Council's updated strategic direction, and it may not adequately reflect the aspirations of mana whenua and our communities today. Next slide, please. In terms of scope, the proposed scope for the strategy is in accordance with the MPS for Indigenous biodiversity. It encompasses all Indigenous species and ecosystems, from mountains to sea. It's proposed that the strategy will focus on coordinated action by Aucklanders, council, mana whenua, landowners, and community restoration groups. A key benefit of the strategy is its provision of direction and alignment for Aucklanders and council. It would deliver value for money, as it directs council actions to be more coordinated and targeted. The strategy would also provide communities with clarity and inspiration, helping to maximise local action for effective biodiversity outcomes. Staff recommend the committee approve the scope of the updated strategy to establish a long-term, region-wide strategic direction for protecting, maintaining, and restoring Indigenous biodiversity in a landscape scale. Next slide, please. The next steps is proposed by staff, as you can see on the screen. The proposed process for developing the strategy will involve targeted engagement with a variety of groups. Their input would inform the drafting of the draft strategy. And staff plan to seek approval to undertake public consultation on the draft strategy around December this year, and there will be prior opportunity for the committee to input into the draft strategy. Public consultation would be aligned to that of the draft long-term plan and draft regional pest management plan in early 2027. In late 2027, staff would report to the committee to seek approval of the final strategy and implement the strategy from 2028 onwards. Staff recommend the committee approve the proposed process, with staff undertaking targeted engagement as described to inform the development of the draft strategy. Staff also recommend the committee approve the discussion document to be used to support this targeted engagement over the coming months. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Cool. Thank you very much. Quite excited about this work. I think it's really important. I'm happy to move. If any seconder for option, Deputy Mayor's like to second. Just to be clear, the B says between June and October 2026, which hints at option B, but we can put option B in brackets if it makes it easier, but that's just wording. Yeah. Are there questions? Councillor Patterson Hamlin, sorry. Tongue-tied at this time of day.
It's my name's too long, it's all good. So I've asked this question in a different context, so hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but just so that I'm completely clear. When we say Indigenous, we are including in that species that are endemic to New Zealand, but that also are Indigenous to other places, so that you know, Kuaka, for example. Just to be, can I just get a really clear definition of what the word Indigenous means when it comes to non-humans?
The definition we're following is per the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity, and I do believe that that includes endemic species.
Good question, thank you. Councillor Ferry, Deputy Chair.
Kia ora, thank you for this, and excited to see it progress. I just wondered if you wouldn't mind explaining how it works in with the Regional Pest Management plan, which obviously it looks to me like the consultation's at the same time, which is good for a start, and also just a little bit on how it links with biosecurity as well. That'd be good, thanks.
So the regional pest management plan has been under development for some time, and there's been some reports coming to you to give you a bit of an update on where that is at, but that's obviously scheduled, as you've identified, for early next year. There's a lot of synergies between a regional pest management plan and an Indigenous biodiversity strategy in terms of sort of the common goals. One speaks to actions that are taken for particular species under the Biosecurity Act in the case of the regional pest management plan. In the case of the Indigenous biodiversity strategy, that's a high-level document, and it directs a range of legislation that the council has to administer. But the thing is that there are things you could identify in your Indigenous biodiversity strategy which will have a bearing or a relationship to the things that you are looking to focus on in terms of the regional pest management plan. And I guess just to pick up on the last point, we see this would be quite effective going out to the public at the same time for these two different but complementary plans or strategies, and therefore we'll be in a better position in 2027 to actually advise the council about where we should be focusing our direction respectively, but also and also the relationship with those two initiatives and the resource management legislation as well.
Thank you. And supplementary, so is it fair to say that, because one of the conversations we've been having around the regional pest management plan is the fact that we can't actually be too aspirational in that plan because of the sort of link to the Biosecurity Act and stuff. Is there more opportunity to be aspirational with this one?
So one of the intents of the Indigenous biodiversity strategy is to actually look at your future vision and start to say, well, you know, do you feel there's further opportunities? Are there gaps that need to be addressed? How is the council using the existing resources? Are they using them effectively? What are the complementary activities that you're doing in a biodiversity space that might speak to some of the biosecurity outcomes that you wish to achieve? So I think one of the key advantages of this exercise is to look at how we can better integrate our council operations, how we can be clear as to what the priorities are, identifying where the additional resourcing may be required if it comes to additional resourcing, and where some of the related programs are relevant to biosecurity. We need to sort of perhaps highlight those as we go through this process.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I'm going to hammer away again at being real about what we're driving here and how we're driving it. I saw on one of the slides there it said that our environment remains in a poor state. And look at that picture there. It's dominated by 3 big cabbage trees. Remember cabbage tree dieback? They were a sentinel species. They were all going to be extinct, and you know, the only thing that's dead is the bait. So I want to make sure that we work from a basis that brings particularly young people with us and doesn't de-incentivise them down the gurgler. You will be doing that, I hope? That's the question.
Thanks very much. That's a good question. Yes, and yes, we will be doing that. And one of the whole point of this exercise is to actually ask ourselves, where are the priorities that we should be sort of focusing on, and if there are some areas that we don't, you know, we've been putting some investments in to date that don't require that, and there are perhaps some other more deserving parts of the natural landscapes or ecosystems or species that we need to focus on, well, then we should be trying to provide that level of guidance to the council group in terms of where we should be putting some money. Just in terms of your question on youth, I'll just let Mandy indicate her discussions with the Youth Advisory Panel.
Yep, and through the chair, thank you, Councillor. I think the youth we've engaged to date are maybe not to the expectation that you've got in mind, but they're so passionate and they truly care deeply about our environment. But I think they're also very conscious of the fact that there are new pressures, there are compounding pressures into the future caused by climate change, caused by growth, that we need to be really cognizant of as we move into the next, not just 10 years, but 30 or 100. And while pictures like those are really, they give us hope, we do need to be realistic that things aren't going to remain in that state if we don't act.
Would you agree more than hope, they give us proof that we have got, what I want to see, if we're going to be aspirational, I'll keep it to the comments. Thanks.
Maybe the last comment I'll add is that obviously we'll be drawing on a lot of evidence, to make sure that any advice is sound and there's a rationale behind what we would provide back to the council in terms of, well, this is what our expectations might be for you to consider and appropriately make the trade-offs in terms of what you want to do. So, yeah, I just wanted to just give
Thank
you
you.
that assurance.
Okay, thanks.
Kia ora. And on the cabbage tree is an interesting one because it did wipe out most of the population apart from in forest. So we need more forest for species like that. In wetlands and farms almost completely in the north, gone. Councillor Newman.
Yeah, good afternoon. A couple of questions from me. You talked about the shared strategy with central government. What aspect of this are we sharing with central government? What are they doing? Not paying for it?
There's an expectation on councils to give effect to some of the national priorities that they've identified through their national statements about biodiversity. But I think we have a number of relationships through, say, Predator Free New Zealand. We have the Auckland deal that's been recently signed that sort of gives a commitment there. Now, of course, that's a bit, there's a few loose ends there, obviously. And then I guess the question would be, how can we better prepare through this exercise to actually have a more informed discussion with central government about how the Auckland Indigenous Biodiversity Strategy might be given effect?
The report talks about the Natural Environment Investment Area Oversight Group. Who are they? Are they a group of people looking at how we spend our targeted rates? That should be coming here, though, shouldn't it? It's not that group.
So the investment area oversight groups are an internal mechanism to enable the directive on the executive leadership team and the general managers of relevant departments to review information in terms of what staff might be wanting to put up through to committees, for example. So it's just a socialisation and a broader appreciation internally of the kinds of reports that we put through to committee, or in this case, it was an opportunity to say to them and to make sure they understood that we're looking to prepare this particular document if the committee gave us the green light.
I would have thought that intrinsic to this strategy is the natural environment target rate. Is that subject to any inquiry, stewardship review on this? I mean, where does that sit? Because I guess that's your funding model. I'm not interested in giving you any new funding until you can prove that you've made full use of that. That particular target rate seems to be targeted very much in certain communities who can afford it. Other communities that didn't have that legacy funding miss out. So how does that target rate get covered in this?
Yeah, look, this is a strategic direction document, and yes, you would be looking to review where your current investments are spent and to ask the question of whether or not they could be redirected perhaps to another, a gap that might be identified. So you might find that there's a habitat that's not well considered in terms of how the council's giving effect to its biodiversity strategy. And so then it might be a case of how the targeted rate or general rates for that matter or anything else, grants, whatever, how that is best applied to the strategic direction. Yes, so we'll be so this is about developing strategic direction. It's not about the review of a targeted rate. It will inform the targeted rate discussion as a subsequent step. So it is separate in that regard. But what we're trying to do is look at all the different avenues for or mechanisms for investment and see how they can be worked well in a more synergised way in the future.
Sorry, look, I want to direct how we will focus our target rate. I don't really want to defer to a heroic strategy. I'm kind of looking for the connection between, because these are quite heroic words. Looking at paragraph 26, establish an intergenerational vision, community priorities and goals, promote ecological connectivity and resilience to climate change, recognise connections across land, freshwater and coastal marine areas and support national biodiversity priorities. I mean, that's almost like a statement from the UN. That is a very lofty goal, but I'm trying to work out how that connects back to how we fund this and implement this, I guess through that group that you'd referred to.
That investment area group can be a reference group, but I think the key point here is to note the difference between a strategic direction, which helps guide a number of the implementation mechanisms the council has available to it. So that's where you can be making those considerations through long-term plan considerations, targeted rates, and all the other avenues that you have available to you in terms of how you direct work for those outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Wilson.
Thank you for the paper. Look, I'd have to say that I was jumping all over the place trying to figure out where everything sits, and there was it was hard to recognise the part that would have MIS promotes, i.e. what is the impact on Māori. It defined what we already know about Māori in terms of it's integral to the identity, but it then didn't go the next step. And in fact, sort of, how is this, a logical step to where you intend to be, which you mentioned engagement, and also it was a good partai around Indigenous, and how that fits, because it may not necessarily be the same as you describe or ascribe to mana whenua. So there is a question in there, and I'm hoping you can figure out what that is, but you understand the notion that I'm finding it a little bit difficult to see the intention in terms of this, because you've already engaged with advisory groups that I'm not sure how they got mentioned. Can you just sort of put it in some sort of sequential context that actually lets me move it through my head in a better, not helped by the fact that it's getting late as well. So I accept that absolutely.
So thank you. Again, we've done some initial engagement with mana whenua over the last 6 months to get them to be aware of what the Indigenous biodiversity is about. We've got a bit of a requirement to obviously develop such a strategy in partnership with them, and what we're intending to do is, if we get the green light here today, is to start that process more formally in terms of the engagement with mana whenua, using the discussion document as one reference, but also obviously the discussions we've been having with mana whenua directly over the last wee while in introducing the topic, and obviously that'll be workshopped over time in this next period of time. So we've got a program of work in terms of that timeline set out, so that we will hopefully get a draft strategy by the end of the year, and that will obviously have a mana whenua input all the way through over the next wee while. Does that help? Or?
It does, but there is, separate from the MIS, there's a mana whenua and advisory panels have had initial briefings. I guess that's what confused me. So as well as an MIS, there's the program team, whoever they may be, have already briefed the Natural Environment Investment Area Oversight Group, the individuals from key departments, not sure who they would be, mana whenua, not sure who they are, rural and youth advisory panels, and I can't see the connection there in terms of that specific heading and why, because you're asking them partai around who to engage with. So
we've engaged with all 19 iwi, so we've got their, we've socialised that with them, and so we've got their awareness of this initiative. As you say, there is some internal staff that will just socialise the fact that we're looking to start this process off. And in the case of the Rural Advisory Panel and the Youth Advisory Panel, we just thought that in the case of the Youth Advisory Panel, we don't often get a lot of feedback from some of the youth at times, and so we thought we would socialise the fact that there's an opportunity coming up, if this committee was to agree today, for some further engagement with interests in the youth space. In the case of rural, we had an opportunity in the recent months to just socialise again what the strategy is intended to do, and to just provide them with a bit of an introduction to it, so that we would come back to them in due course, again asking them to identify people that we should look to engage with as we go to the next stage between June and October.
Thank you. So as this is worked through, what will co-design with mana whenua mean in terms of practice, for this document? What will that actually mean, co-design, in practice?
So we will be having regular hui with, as the policy department, we've got regular hui set up. So over the next wee while we'll be doing that. I think we'll be sort of thinking about some opportunities for workshopping as well. We would hope that they will be able to identify elements of the Indigenous biodiversity strategy that are particularly important to them, whether it's things like identification of tonga species, as an example, or if there are special places, you know, that they might wish to identify, so that we can take into account those values. And of course, in the process of doing this, we're obviously being aware of their past documentation of what their values are, and so we're wanting to reflect those values, and also any future discussions and any vision or objective exercise that we might produce over the next few months.
So co-design normally has all those components. I guess I really mean in terms of practice, what will that look like?
So regular hui workshops, is it like you're asking about the mechanism?
That would happen normally as a matter of course in terms of the engagement, but I'm talking about what happens next, the co-design part in practice. So you've got all the talk, what would happen in practice in terms of the strategy here?
I think I can speak to that in terms of what we've done so far. And I'll raise an example of what we've heard so far. We've heard from almost all mana whenua that the strategy should enable iwi-led partnership, iwi-led action and partnership between council and iwi in improving outcomes for biodiversity. And so that statement there is something that council have heard, and we are going to take it forward into this next stage, thinking about what those actions look like and how we can embed that into the strategy. So at this stage, I don't think we have an answer for, you know, what that would look like, but the intention is there and we've started those conversations.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Member Wilson. Thank you. Councillor Philippine.
Tēnā koe he mana. A tēnā ko rua David, aua ko Mandy, to you both, just acknowledge you. Look, my question is on consultation. And would there be any targeted consultation from organisations that work in the Indigenous or biodiversity area? I just wanted, it wasn't clear in the report, but I'm hoping that there is targeted because they're so crucial to our work. Kia ora.
Yeah, absolutely. Staff are currently planning a symposium that will bring together some of those major players. So from both industry as well as community, prominent community conservation groups, acknowledging that there is already a lot of work happening. There's something like 500 schools, marae, community groups who are out there doing the mahi. So acknowledging their work is there and that the strategy will help provide them direction and amplify what they're already doing.
Ka pai. Ngā me. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thanks, Councillor. That is all the questions. Cool. Thank you both. We'll get you to step back. And yeah, and I'll just, I had missed Councillor Patterson Hamlin, so I'll get her to move it. Deputy Mayor to second. I know, but I'll just, if you can put Sarah in instead of me, sorry about that. Cool. Right, Councillor Filippani would like to speak to it. No? Yes? No. Okay. Anyone like to speak to it? Yeah, Councillor Burns.
It's just to back up the youth panel last night and how engaged they all were, and you were writing furiously all their questions, and I think they gave you a bit of a homework to go away with, so it was really nice to see how engaged they were with that, and some excellent questions from a brand new youth panel. So I think that they're going to be really valuable in this space.
So thank you for your time last night and your presentation. They were definitely receptive to it all.
Thanks, Councillor. And apologies, Councillor Newman, I remember you said you'd like to speak, so you're next up. Oh, you don't need to? Okay, Councillor Patterson-Hamlin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody. How exciting. Yeah, just to tautoko what Bo said, I'm really excited that the team have proactively gone to the youth panel and the rural advisory panel on this, because I agree those are the two most relevant of the panels. I just want to commend this mahi. It dovetails really beautifully with the other pest management things that we've been working on, and a whole lot of the other work around council as well, and should hopefully give us some really fantastic strategic direction that will have a decades and decades long impact. So thank you for the mahi on this, and I'm excited to move it.
Thank you. Right, all those in favour? Any opposed? Good work, thank you. Right, on to the last substantive item of the day, 8.6. We have the Auckland Unitary Plan, making